The Great Hazelnut Harvest 2021 continues. This is day 14, folks. We're wrapping up the end of our second week of picking, and as you can see behind me, we still have plenty more nuts to pick. Let me show you. We have so many nut clusters that are just ripening ever so quickly, and it seems like entire rows now are starting to become ripe. So we're at the point here now where I can start marking hopefully entire rows, or I can move from marking bushes that are ripe and ready to pick to red tags of bushes not to pick, so the pickers know pick the whole row except for the handful of bushes within that row that aren't quite ripe. Here are some red tags indicating that the shrub is not yet ready to pick. Now this works well once we get to the point of the row being almost entirely ripe and ready to pick. As you can see, there's still plenty of nut clusters to be picked, and most bushes are ripening within days. Look at all the diversity within this orchard. It's important to remember, most plantings of hazelnuts in the Midwest are from open pollinated seed sources and not cultivars. The development and testing of cultivars is a core goal of the Iowa Hazelnut Project and a real bottleneck to demonstrating profitability and expanding acreage. I tell you what, let me pick a few different shrubs and I'll show you what I'm talking about. As we can see from these nut clusters here, starting with this single nut cluster, and then we're working on to one with 3, and then finally one with, I think this one has 5 in it. You can see how those husks, or we call that the involucre, comes all the way around the nut cluster itself, and then almost forms a beautiful little fantail there. So that's one example of what some of these nut clusters look like. And here's another set of nut clusters here. A single nut, a cluster of 3, and then a cluster of 4 here. It's maybe a little bit similar to the first set that I showed just a second ago. They certainly do, the involucre or husk certainly does go completely around the nut itself. Now we get to this set of nut clusters here, and you can see again they have a little bit less pronounced than the nuts previously shown, but they still do have a little bit of that flare that comes around the end, and it certainly encapsulates the entire nut that's in that cluster. So this might be intermediate as a reference point. And here we have a set of nut clusters that differ quite a bit from some of the previous ones. Here the involucre or the husk does not come all the way around the nut. You can see there's one with 3 nuts in it. There's a 4 nut cluster. These are quite a bit smaller as well than some of the other nut clusters, but very different in how they look and in their structure, shape. Well, that's the end of day 14 of the Great Hazelnut Harvest 2021.